I'm joined by Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne. Just tabled the fiscal the economic statement, the spring economic statement, the first time we've done this in the spring. I want to ask an accountability question that you will have. In this budget, there's a lot of things, a lot of plans. What are some important metrics for you to hit over the next year? Inflation, unemployment numbers. What's going to be a key metric you keep an eye on every day at the office?
Well, let's say the first thing that matters to Canadians is affordability. You know, making sure that life is affordable for Canadians. We have seen the suspension of the federal gas tax. It's already, you see it at the pump. The boost with respect to the groceries coming on 5th of June. But, you know, one thing I was trying to explain, and people at home understand that, you know, when I was in Washington, people were talking about the fog of uncertainty wrapping the world, because we live in probably one of the most, I mean, you and I are about the same age. You look back, this is probably the most uncertain time we have seen in generation. And therefore, you know, in that, you focus on what you can control. Because what we can control is to build a country. What we can control is to have major project office. What we can control is to make sure that we can permit these projects. What we can control is offering opportunities to young people, you know, the Red Seal program. This is a step change in our nation. What we can control is to create a sovereign wealth fund so that your grandkids and my kids and beyond could share in the prosperity that will be created in this country. So what you've seen in the budget, first, we're fiscally prudent, you know, because, you know, deficit lower by $11 billion. You know, second,
it's still a $67 billion deficit.
well, you have to put that in perspective with our other partners around the world. If you look at the International Monetary Fund, they said countries which have, because growth does not happen by just looking at the sky, you know, you need policy. They were saying countries who have the fiscal capacity, they mentioned two, Germany, Canada. They said, if you invest in housing, infrastructure, productivity, innovation, you'll see higher growth. That's what we're seeing. Then you need fiscal discipline. Folks have been tightening their belt for quite some time. So we said, okay, let's tighten the belt around Ottawa. $60 billion of savings that we put, we're very much on track to achieve that. Then you look at the growth numbers. By the way, you know, you have to look at other countries. We're growing twice as much as Germany almost. Twice as much almost as Japan.
But how much is that growth attributed to high oil prices, and we're still seeing manufacturing shrink?
The question, because for folks, this is not an oil story. You know why? Conflict started, what, 28th of February? The forecast you see, which is the private sector forecast, closed on March 11. So this is not like an oil price story where you say, oh, these guys have been sitting, the price of, no. This is really structural measures. You know, you see the major project office, $126 billion of new projects. So it's more like a growth story based on decision and the resilience. I'll give all the credits to Canadian workers. We are far more resilient. You know, when we started that, the world was looking and said, well, Canada will have trouble because we're more intertwined with the U.S. economy. Tariff is going to hit them harder. And when you look back, obviously, you look and you say, after all, we're growing twice as much as many of our peers. Now, that being said, if you're in Hamilton and watching, it's tough. If you're it's
right down, I call it the Rust Belt for Ontario. Hamilton right down to Windsor.
Hamilton, you look at the auto sector, if you're in Oshawa watching, say, well, for me, it's not that great. You look in the softwood lumber, you look in aluminum, in my neck of the wood, people would say, no, this is, so you know, in certain sector and regions, to your point, David, it is difficult. And that's why we have to be there for workers, families, because that, for them, it's felt very differently than if you look on a national basis. But what I want to say to Canadians, we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. It's unprecedented what we're going through, but we're going to be okay because the growth is there. The prudence is there, the seriousness of the moment we understand. Like, for example, $7 billion is additional revenues we got. 2/3 of that we return to people in terms of affordability measure. You look at new measures in the spring economic update, about half of them is for supporting families and people. So I think we have the heart at the right place. We understand that this is what, if you ask me what keeps me awake at night, is really how we can make sure that the affordability issue is one that we always have front and center. That's what we have. Housing is one of the key pillars as well. So we're going to keep working on that.
Speaking about things we can control, the major projects office is central to that strategy. There's, 15 projects, I think, in front of the MPO right now, something like that? Okay, so I mentioned what are the metrics for success? Is it possible to say half of those will be under construction in, say, 2 years? Is there some way you can say we're going to get these out? You've got a majority government now, so you've got some time to get this work, but people will want to see some of those major projects get underway.
Yeah, well, we have a majority, but you have to govern with humility and ambition. That's what I would say, and confidence. But to your point, we're working with proponents because, as you know, it's not government who build projects.
Granted, sure.
Is there to support. We're working with proponents. You saw Shell, for example, yesterday making a big vote of confidence, another investment. We're looking at other extension of projects. We're talking. You saw Baie du Nord in Newfoundland and Labrador. A lot of people are looking, Canada as a strategic partner, both from an energy and food security perspective. So I think we're doing the right thing. And we're just getting started, by the way. No one would say, no one is saying here today there's no more work. There's much more work to do. But I think the fiscal track is there, the vision for the country is there, and the support for Canadians is there. At the same time that we're going to invest in sport and our young people, making our community safer. That's a big issue for many, many communities.
I wonder, you may not be the central minister on this, but I'll bet you're involved with the Alberta MOU. Yeah. It's a little bit delayed, and I wondered if you're able to pass on where the discussions with the Alberta government going on that particular MOU, central to unlocking a lot of Western Canadian energy resources.
Yeah, I honestly, I could say the partnership you're seeing now between the federal government and Alberta is quite unprecedented. I mean, it's great to see that we both see that Canada can be, and Alberta in particular, a responsible and sustainable energy provider. The world wants and needs Canadian energy. I mean, I get calls from our partners in Asia, partners in Europe. One thing that people realize that what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz, it's going to end one day. But you know what? Geography doesn't change. People don't change that much either. So there will always be kind of a risk premium around assets in that region, and therefore, if you're looking at diversification to reduce risk, Canada comes to mind. Obviously, our partners are saying, what more can you do to help us address security of energy, whether you're in Asia, whether you're in Europe? And that's why I think it's a great opportunity for Canadians. And this is good jobs. This is good jobs for our folks in Western Canada, in particular Alberta, Saskatchewan. So we're going to do our part. We want it to work with our colleagues in Alberta, and the tone at the top has changed significantly.
I want to talk a little bit about defense spending. You hit the 2.5% target this year, first government to do that in a long time, but NATO and Canada now has to get 5% by 2035. When are we going to see that defense spending ramped up, and why didn't we see more information about that in this particular fiscal statement? A line item, some charts to consolidate and report on how we're doing on defense spending.
Well, you're quite right. The first thing, we hit 2% 5 years ahead of what we had planned, which is already a big milestone. I think our NATO partners see Canada as being serious. Now, as the finance minister, I would say, though, I want to see more investment, but we're going to do that in a smart way. We're going to build at home with Canadian workers, Canadian products. Gone are the days where we're just buying from the shelf abroad. We need to, like we've seen in other parts, our southern neighbor, among others, they've been using defense investment as a catalyst for innovation, for research and development, for a number of projects. So we're going to learn from the best practices, making sure that our workers, unionized workers across the country, can build the type of equipment we need to support our armed forces.
Just quickly, last one. Prime Minister Carney is in Armenia this weekend, the first non-European leader to attend a meeting of European political leaders. I know that's a big area on trade, security, getting closer to Europe. I don't know if you have any insight into what the Prime Minister's objectives will be as he meets with European leaders without Prime Minister named Orban there. That's going to be a big change, I think, in the tenor of the EU.
Well, I would say it's just a reflection of what I say, Canada is strong at home and strategic abroad. It follows, for example, as finance minister now, I'm invited one meeting out of two of the finance minister in Europe. I've been invited to the Eurogroup finance minister. So I think what they want to see, our colleagues in Europe appreciate the transatlantic voice, and they see Canada as a kind of a voice of reason in a very uncertain world. I'm not surprised that they're cherishing the presence of the Prime Minister, because I can tell you my own experience. We've been invited to more European meetings than I've seen in a long time, because the transatlantic relationship they see as foundational to ensure the I would say, the security of the world in many ways, food security, energy security. So Canada is seen very strategically around the world.
Great. Minister Champagne, thank you so much, and good luck selling the budget.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Merci. Thank you very much.